Since the late 1960s, Franco Zeffirelli's adaptation of Romeo and Juliet has generally been considered the best version of the Shakespearean classic. However, recent news is set to damage its reputation. The film's underage lead performers, Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting, helped make it a hit. They're now suing Paramount Pictures because they allege not only that their infamous nude scene in the film was filmed without their consent, but that it constitutes child pornography. Join Factsverse as Olivia Hussey sues for her controversial Romeo and Juliet scene. In 1968, Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet was released on the world of cinema, and it had a dramatic impact. Prior to that release, there had yet to be a definitive adaptation of the Shakespearean classic on film. Not only did Franco's version strike a chord with audiences that allowed it to become a hit, but it also stayed true to the source material in integral ways. One of those ways was by casting lead performers who matched the age that the characters were supposed to be in the original play. The idea of casting teen actors in Romeo and Juliet was all well and good, but it ended up having some decidedly sketchy consequences. The good part was that the teenage actors made the film more realistic, and also helped the material translate to the teen demographic. If it weren't for the fact that Franco's film starred teenagers, it likely wouldn't have been nearly as big of a hit. Olivia Hussey was 15 at the time, while Leonard was 16. While there was nothing wrong with the decision to cast teenagers in the film, the teenage casting became controversial when it was released and it contained a notable nude scene. As soon as the iconic nude scene from Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet was unveiled, audiences began questioning whether or not what they were seeing on the screen was actually what they were being told. Optimistically, many people imagined that body doubles or other such tricks were being utilized to create the illusion that the underage performers were nude. As it turns out, the teenage performers in the film were actually as nude on set as they appeared to be in the final product. Not only that, but the two performers are now alleging they appeared nude without their consent. Romeo and Juliet stars are now alleging foul play. Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting have recently filed a lawsuit against Paramount Pictures relating to that infamous nude scene. Paramount was the distributor, and Olivia and Leonard are alleging that the company has profited off the distribution of child pornography by continuing to make the film available to paying members of the public. In most cases, distributing images of nude teenagers would be an obvious crime. But things are different in the world of cinema. This is especially true when you take different time periods and different regions into account. Not only was Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet filmed in the 60s, but it was made by a filmmaker whose sensibilities were much more European than American. To Franco, the depiction of nude teenagers in the film was no big deal, and much of the world felt the same way when it was released. It was predominantly Romeo and Juliet's popularity in America that drew so much attention to the teenage nudity. Not only did Olivia and Leonard's nudity get a free pass despite the fact that the performers were underage, but the film has overcome its controversy since its release to become staple viewing in high schools across America. It seems that the world no longer thinks that Zeffirelli's 1986 adaptation is all that controversial. Instead, audiences have come to consider it the preeminent version of the play to get teenagers hooked on Shakespeare. Olivia and Leonard's new lawsuit is liable to change this reputation and reignite the controversy the film was met with upon its release. While the fact that 1968's Romeo and Juliet contains nude images of teenage performers may be enough for certain audience members to decry it, there are worse things being alleged in the lawsuit. Not only are Olivia and Leonard claiming that their infamous nude scene should be illegal to distribute, but they're also claiming it was filmed without their consent. According to both performers, they were coaxed into performing nude in the film at the behest of Zeffirelli himself. Once Franco managed to convince the two teen performers to strip nude in front of the camera, he assured them that no nudity would be featured in the film's final cut. As anyone who's seen the adaptation knows, the director was lying. Did Franco trick Olivia and Leonard into appearing nude? Hussey and Whiting alleged they were promised before filming that there would be no nudity. There was a bedroom scene that was written into the script, but Zeffirelli assured the two teens that flesh-colored garments would be used to give off the illusion that the performers were nude, so they didn't have to strip in front of the camera. It wasn't until towards the end of the movie's shoot, once it was time to film the bedroom scene, that Franco began suggesting that the idea of flesh-colored garments be eschewed. Franco was persistent, alleging the film wouldn't work unless Olivia and Leonard were actually as naked as they appeared to be. Eventually, Zeffirelli was able to wear Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting down with his insistence that the film wouldn't work unless the performers stripped down before the cameras. But he was only able to do so by promising that no graphic nudity would make it into the film. Franco claimed the cameras were placed in such a way that none of the performers' genitalia were even being recorded. It was under this presumption that Olivia and Leonard finally performed their iconic bedroom scene. Another thing the two are alleging is that the release of Romeo and Juliet caused strain that their careers would never recover from, given that neither performer has worked much in the many decades since, should suggest as much. In total, the two performers are suing Paramount for a staggering sum of around $500 million. The lawsuit was filed as a result of a recent California law that temporarily suspended the statute of limitations with regard to older claims of child sex abuse. Are Olivia and Leonard being sincere? People who are on Paramount Pictures' side allege that Olivia and Leonard are opportunists who are only expressing outrage about their teenage nude scene now that they think they can get some money and attention out of it. Regardless of whether or not this is the case, the performer's shared lawyer believes that the matter of Romeo and Juliet's infamous nude scene constituting child pornography is pretty cut and dry. In 2018, Olivia Hussey gave an interview with Fox News during which she parroted Zeffirelli's claim that the nudity in his adaptation had been exactly what the film needed. There's certainly a lot of merit to the argument that the film wouldn't have the legacy it does today if it weren't for its nude scene. Besides the mystery behind the infamous nude scene, another thing fans have often wondered about is whether or not its two teenage performers ever hooked up behind the scenes. As it turns out, Hussey and Whiting actually did develop somewhat of a thing for each other over the course of filming. But their love was much more innocent than the one depicted in both the film and the play. According to Olivia, she'd never been with a boy before appearing besides Leonard in Romeo and Juliet. The two stars were physically attracted to each other upon first meeting and developed a bond over the course of production. They became something like boyfriend and girlfriend, though things never got serious. After Romeo and Juliet, Olivia had some trouble in her love life. At age 17, her agent introduced her to an actor named Christopher Jones. Unbeknownst to both Olivia and her agent, he suffered from violent schizophrenia. The abuse started in the relationship early on, but Olivia stayed longer than she should have because she felt obligated to help the man. Eventually, she broke things off with Christopher and moved into a house in Hollywood. But it wasn't just any old house. It was the house that Sharon Tate had been murdered in by the Manson family just several weeks before. While Olivia was staying there, Christopher broke into the house and raped her. Olivia certainly suffered a lot of horrors during her teenage years, and she didn't have a lot of career longevity in terms of her acting. But she's happily married today with several children. One of her children is an actress whose name is India Isley. Olivia and Leonard Whiting got the chance to play India's on-screen parents in the 2015 Social Suicide, which was based upon Romeo and Juliet. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know that Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting were underage when they filmed their infamous nude scene in Romeo and Juliet? Let us know in the comments section below.